So good morning to everyone. Good morning. I want to deal this morning with such a simple issue that I have to say, of all the issues we dealt with around this table, this one happens to be one that I don't believe will make anyone too complex in their thinking. And I admit that I happened to see it sort of as an aftersight, and it made me think about the following issue during Hanukkah that we're about to begin tomorrow night. Are we thanking God for what was then or for what is now as well? That's the question we're going to deal with. And it all comes from one simple letter in the alphabet. This letter can make a huge difference. The letter is Vav. Now, why do I say the letter Vav can make a huge difference? Because if the Vav is too short, which letter is it?
Yud.
A Yud. And I don't know how many people know, but when we came to Israel, so things were still done by hand, the clerks of the Interior Ministry wrote my family name as Grunstein, but me as Greenstein. They just didn't make the Yud longer. So it turns out that we're the same family, same last name in English, but in Hebrew, because of one Vav, or to be more precise, one Yud that didn't become a Vav, here I am with a different name. So I have a certain affinity to the letter Vav, to the letter Yud. As everybody knows, and we dealt with this many years ago, and in my first book that God privileged me to publish, I even have a chapter on this. I said that you cannot let the Yud become a Vav. In Hebrew, the word shachiach means common. If you make the Yud into a Vav, it becomes shachuach, which means forgotten. Anything that is frequent can become forgotten. If you have your kids around you and your wife and whatnot, you sometimes forget how amazing that achievement is. And therefore, we don't want the Yud to become a Vav. That should be our whole life. And that's the topic today. And let's see where I come from. Everybody ready? You don't need to have 2 cups of coffee this morning, just one. Here is mine. I'm going to take a little sip because this is not a complicated share. Okay, look at the picture on the board. This picture has a Hanukkah menorah of then with very modern candles of now in the color of the flag of the state of Israel. So I guess my question is, this Hanukkah menorah, are we basically going back to the past and saying, God, thank you for what you did then? Or are we thanking God for what is now? That's the question we're going to deal with. The Rambam in Hilchos Megillah and Chanukah, Perek Aleph Halacha Gimel says, and this is in regard not to Chanukah, but to Megillah reading. When we read the Megillah on Purim, we say 3 brachot, Shehechiyanu, Sha'asa Nisim, and Al Mikra Megillah. The second bracha is the one that concerns me this morning. Says the Rambam with regard to Megillah reading, that this is the bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam sha'asa nisim la'avotenu bayamim ahem. Anyone want to continue? U bizman hazeh or bizman hazeh? In my Rambam on the computer, it had both variations. I looked in many Rambams in preparation for this year. The Rambam Yad Shuta, other edited editions. There is a lot on this question. Is there a Vav there or not? Now, I have to be honest with you that the same Rambam later on in Hilchos Hanukkah per se does say that the bracha is Sha'asa Nisim La'avotenu Bayamim Bahem Bazman Hazeh without a Vav. However, in Hilchos Megillah, there is a Vav. So which one is correct? Or is there a big difference between them? It's just a little Vav. So gentlemen, if we say Bayamim Bahem Bizman Hazeh, we're basically saying what? In those days, at this time, meaning many hundreds of years ago, at this time of the year, Kaf, Hey, Kislev, and on, there was a miracle. Thank you, God, for making a miracle. We won a war. We brought back independence to the state of Israel. Then, and we, of course, had the miracle of the oil. But if you say, Bayamim ahem, or Bizman hazeh, what are you saying? in those days, and at this time, and Vav HaChibur. Everybody remember their classes in Diktuk way back when? The Vav HaChibur, the Vav that connects things. If you say Ubizman Hazeh, you're not just thanking God for what was, but for what is. And just in case you think I'm crazy, that I'm making this assumption based on one letter in the Hebrew alphabet, let's see if Poskim picked up on this. So I thought it was cute. I said maybe it's a mistake, but the very fact that it's in parentheses means that years and years of people who learned the Rambam didn't think to take it out. So let's see if I'm correct or not. Namely, when we are going to thank God on Hanukkah, be it in the Hallel or be it during candle lighting, are we thanking God just for the miracles of then? Or are we also thanking God for the miracles of today? What is Hanukkah's agenda? Just past or also present? Everybody understand the question? If you say Sha'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim ahem bizman hazeh, it's past. But if you say ubizman hazeh, it's also present. So let's see what the poskim have to say on this issue. I have to admit that this whole shir can go down the drain because of a Knesset Agdola. Knesset Agdola is one of the rabbis out of Turkey, was a rabbi in Izmir. I actually have a student in Izmir today, so that's why I found it fascinating that he's from Izmir. And the Knesset Agdola was a very important posek because in his particular book, he wrote the nusach of many different things that we use today, like the contemporary ketubah. So the Knesset Agdola says your whole shir is bogus, because even though the bracha is by Yamim Ahem Uzman Hazeh, Perusha Bizmanam Shahaya Bizman Hazeh just means at this time. Don't start making a whole shir bake on a vav. But I would like to suggest that if indeed there's a vav, it does make a difference. And let's see if it does in the poskim. The first point of view is that we're only thanking God for then. There was a miracle then. And therefore, we're thanking God for doing us what he did then. The one that says this is the Maharshal. The Maharshal, Rav Shlomo ben Yechiel Luria, was a very, very good friend of the Ramah. He lived at the same time of our Ramah. Years 1510 to 1574, he was one of the first people that said that the Pilpul way of learning Gemara was a mistake. People are wasting time. He had a very important yeshiva in Lublin, not the one that Rav Meir Shapira, of course, founded in the 20th century, but an important yeshiva. And the Maharshal is quoted and requoted in the Ashkenazic world ever since he functioned. In other words, 500 years later, we're still quoting the Maharshal. He has a responsum that we're about to quote from. He also has a very important Perush on the Gemara called Yamshel Shlomo. And the Maharshal, Rav Shlomo Luria, says as follows. They asked him many questions about davening. Now, here's the problem with davening. If you ask people Hilchos Tefillah, they'll answer you. But if you ask people simplistic questions about davening, they either brush you off or they don't know. What do I mean brush you off? Have you heard of the story of the Beis Halevi Shidduch that had to be canceled? Well, you never heard it. You never heard it? The Beis Halevi, the great-grandfather of the contemporary Rav Soloveitchik, had a shidduch done and organized with a girl. And the father of the girl, after everything was organized, asked him, when is the molad? What did he answer? When is the molad? New Arthur, you know when the molad is? He said, when is the molad? He said, how am I supposed to know? Look in a luach. Meaning, why are you asking me simplistic questions like this? The next day, the father-in-law canceled the shidduch. He said the guy's a bura ma'aretz to the second power. He's an idiot. He's an ignoramus. He's a moron. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know when the molad is. So that's one way of dealing with these kinds of questions. But the other way of dealing with it is to say, it's too bad I spent all my time learning Gemara and Poskim and Halacha and Machshava and everything else, but we never spent time on the proper nusach of davening and when the molad is. So the Maharshal decides to go with the second methodology. They asked him a question about the nusach of various things in davening. And he says, I had a great Rebbe. I don't know who the Rebbe is. I don't know what this Rashi Teva is. It's something Mori Skeni. HaChassid Moreno Arav Yitzchak Zal. It's too bad that I didn't ask my Rebbe these questions. I feel like a dog going to the water and licking. That's all I got. A few licks of water from my Rebbe. Anyone know what that means? Yemei Chorpi? Chorpi. Charifut. What's charifut? When you go to the falafel stand and you ask Rabbi Lewis for a falafel with charif. What's charif?
Stuff.
Thank you. Sharp. When are you sharp? When you're young. When you're young, you have less knowledge, but your mind is sharp. So he said, when I was young, Yagati betalmud, I learned a lot of Gemara, upilpul, below bediktukei tefillah, but I didn't ask questions about the say this in davening or that in davening. Sim shalom or shalom rav. Hey shalom rabba min shemaya b'chaim tovim aleinu or just chaim aleinu. Do we have a good life or our life is good enough? Didn't ask these questions. So I only remember a few things. And amongst the things the Maharshal remembers, Rav Luria tells us, Zechurani, Sha'amar sha'asa nisim la'avoteinu b'yamim ha'em b'zman hazeh v'kach perusho, asa nisim b'yomim, sha'avru mamash b'zman hazeh, v'lo ki yesh omrim b'yamim ha'em u b'zman hazeh. So says the Maharshal, the proper nusach is b'yamim ha'em b'zman hazeh, and we're talking about the past. Sha'asa nisim b'yamim sha'avaru, mamash b'zman hazeh. So it's too bad I didn't get more out of my Rebbe. Says the Maharshal, proper nusach is one that's printed on the back of the candles. Everybody knows the back of the candles has the nusach. Good enough. It's amazing how there are certain tunes that have been embedded into the Jewish people. Like the tune for benching in every Ashkenazi community, it's the same tune. Baruch atah Hashem. That one doesn't change. The second one that doesn't change is the Hineni Muchan Mezumah they sing before Sfira. And the third one that doesn't change is the Nusach that most people use for lighting the candles of Hanukkah. So it says the Nusach with the song, think a bit in your mind, says the Maharshal, it's the proper one, the one in the back of the candles. We're just thanking God for the past. The Levush, who he's quoted many times, says indeed, V'yesh medaktakim lomar bizman hazeh belovav, v'yehu da'atenu al anisim she'asa la'avotenu, ve'lo tiyeh hoda'ah rak al nes shel Chanukah or shel Purim bilvad. When you light the candles, then what you're going to thank God for is what was. Thank you, God, for making a miracle then, and that's it. Don't think about today. Don't think about what you went through or what you were saved from. You have something contemporary, say Hagomel. Has nothing to do with Hanukkah candles or Hallel on Hanukkah. It's just about miracles of then. That's the Maharshal's point of view with the Levush. However, there's another point of view, and this point of view is of the same Levush. And in order to go ahead and introduce the Levush, allow me to start with the Rambam himself. The Rambam himself, who we all started with, he's the one that caused the trouble for this year. He brought that nusach in. He says regarding Hanukkah, you got to be very careful to mention the miracle, to talk about the miracle of Hanukkah. And you shall add praise and thanks to God. For what? Arthur, you want to give this one a try? Ala nisim sha'asa lanu. What's lanu? What's vehi sha'amda lavoteinu v'lanu mean? We didn't hear you, Arthur. I think you're on mute. You're not on mute, actually. We just don't hear you. Okay, Arthur, I think you answered. Lanu means us. Well, it's not just about then, it's about us. Maxwell House was Mitar game for us. Rabbi Maxwell House in the Haggadah. God, you have stood up for them in Mitzrayim. And for us, says the Rambam, it's not just about then, but it's about us as well. And this is what the Levush personally holds. He brought the Maharshal's point of view, but he personally holds otherwise. Now, the Levush is the generation right after the Maharshal. So again, we're an Ashkenazic jury. He was a Talmud of the Ramah, not a contemporary. He was a rabbi in Prague, in Lublin, in Posen. And the Levush was such an important book that we have Perushim on the Levush. One of the ways you know in Judaism, if you're important, is if one of two things happen. Number one, if you have a lot of detractors. If someone comes along and says, I don't hold from Josh's kashrus, and Josh becomes important. He's so important that we speak against him. If you put him in Cherem, oh, I'm important. They put me in Cherem. So that's the one way to be important. A more civil way to be important is if you have a book, a sefer, and people write perushim on your sefer. That's how important they have put your book. It's such an important book that they wrote perushim on it. So the Levush has many perushim written on his book. And in this book called the Levush says the following. Omrim al hanisim, we all know we say al hanisim on Chanukah. And al hanisim, you're supposed to say, Bayomim ahem ubizman hazeh, with the verb, perusho. Everybody ready? 1. Modim l'chal hanisim shasita l'avotenu. First thing is, we thank God for what you did during Chanukah way back when. Number 2, vegam anu modim al hanisim shasita lanu bazman hazeh. And we're also going to thank God for the miracles that God did for us nowadays. Shebechol yom vayom, and every single day, we'll say, every single day, God is doing miracles for us, whether we know about it or whether we don't. In other words, according to the Levush, when we thank God on Chanukah, we're supposed to say, Bayamim ahem ubizman hazeh, and think of two things, past and present, then and now. Think about what God did then, and think about what God is doing for us now. What is God doing for us now? What miracles did you experience this morning? I don't know. Let's start with the hidden miracles. It could very well be this morning, as we're sitting here right now, the Secret Service of Israel with the Mossad has just gone ahead and totally eradicated a planned terror attack on us. We don't even know about it. It could be very well happening, whether we know about it or not. What?
Why would you call that a miracle?
Why is that not a miracle?
A miracle is something that's statistically highly improbable that never occurs. Why not just say, that's what the Mossad is, that's its job. And it did its job. Just like the cop on the corner.
Bruce, as far as I know, there is absolutely no logical reason why you should even be alive to ask that question, or me to answer the question. We're living in a terrible neighborhood over here, surrounded by enemies. And despite it all, here we are. The Mossad of a little tiny Israel is successful in going ahead and sabotaging a terror attack, and you don't consider that a miracle?
No. I'm born in the Bronx, where
Wait a minute.
New York. I mean, miracles in sense, it's true. I survived every day on the road. Things didn't happen to me. I've been mugged, killed, stabbed, attacked.
We'll get to it. I promise you. But says the Levush right now, as I'm living here in the 17th century in Poland, I'm a rabbi. There's a lot of miracles happening around me. Now, he wasn't living at such a terrible, wonderful time. But having said that, he says there's a lot of miracles happening, whether we know about it or whether we don't. When we thank God on Hanukkah, it's for both. So by Yamim Ahem, then, ubizman hazeh, now. Comes along the Levush and proves his point of view. He says, this is not just on Hanukkah. This is the Jewish custom throughout the year. It's consistent. I love consistencies. Anytime Chazal has decided to make a nusach, a wording that we're supposed to say, it was always with everything in that topic. Namely, we don't just say, do you want a cup of coffee? We also say, do you want a piece of cake? Everybody remember that Seinfeld episode where they were served coffee without cake and George's parents went ballistic? How do you serve coffee without cake? No, if you say coffee, you got to say cake. Not healthy, maybe not the best idea after a big meal. No. When we mention something, we mention it all. So let's think about this. Is he right? He says, yeah. When you go and you comfort a mourner, Mourner, what do you say? May God comfort you. If you would have asked me, enough. What do we say? What do we say? No, in Yiddish, there's a saying for this. It's called amaret shoin. If I'm already talking about it, so you're not the only mourner. We're all mourners. We're all mourning for not having a Beis Hamikdash. So if I'm already talking about mourning, I'll talk about all the mourners. In benching, I thank God for the meal, and I'm thanking God for the meal. I say, but God, there's no Jerusalem. Rachem Hashem Elokeinu Yisrael Amecha. And since I'm talking about all the things that we're missing, I might as well talk about my bank account. Correct? Elokeinu Avinu Arneseinu Vechalkelenu. God, please give us a good salary. God, please make sure my bank account is full. I'm already talking about everything that's missing in my life. So I'll start with the Beis Hamikdash. I'll go to my bank account. If I'm already talking to a mourner, so I might as well say, you should be comforted. Everyone that's mourning Jerusalem should be comforted. All the people in the world should be comforted. That's the way Chazal made sayings. So if we're going to say thank you to God, why just thank you for then? Say thank you for now. Thank you for the state of Israel. Thank you for keeping me healthy. Thank you for many different things. That's the point of view of the Lavush. As on the Shulchan Aruch brings the Lavush, Taz a bit younger than the Lavush, but also functioned around his time. The Taz comes along and says exactly these words: L'chol kol anisim she'asa la'avotenu. 1, 2. Lifrot oto hanes de'achshav me'en ha'me'ora shebechol yom oseh lanu nisim gluyim v'niskarim. So Bruce says, what miracles are happening today? Big deal. I have to say, on a regular year, me and Bruce are going to have a big debate. He's going to say the Mossad's doing his job, and I'm going to say it's a miracle. But this year, we have no debate. You know why, Bruce?
Why?
We have no debate this year. I'll tell you why we have no debate this year. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We've been in the middle of a pandemic since March. People have died from this pandemic. I know a gentleman that lost 20% of his mind because he wasn't treated properly for this pandemic. So a young man, younger than me, now is functioning with 80% of his brain. And yet, here we are this morning. Good morning. I can crack a few jokes. Arthur does me a favor and laughs at them, even though they're not funny. And we're talking about coffee. We're talking about cake. That's not a miracle that we're still alive and well and able to learn together despite everything that we went through this year. This year, I have no qualms whatsoever that the fact that we're alive is a miracle. Yes, Bruce, you're correct. We wore the mask, we social distanced, but you and I both know that so many people kept every last regulation and still got sick.
So I guess it depends how you want to define a miracle. Because if you did nothing to protect yourself, absolutely nothing, and you were immersed with people completely contagious, you're the only one who walked out unscathed, that would be remarkable, and perhaps that would be a miracle. If you did everything you could to protect yourself, and you managed to, okay. If you wore your seatbelt and survived the accident, very nice. If you didn't wear the seatbelt and your car was totaled and you got out of the car, one might say that's a little bit more, again, statistically improbable.
I would have agreed with Bruce, except for there is an actual part of davening each morning that totally eradicates what you just said. Every morning you use God's name no less than 15 times, thanking God, not for the extra territorial, unnatural miracles, but the fact that you got up this morning, or the fact that right now, if you choose, Bruce, you can get out your chair and stand on your 2 feet. Am I correct? Did you
Most
not
of the
say
time.
this morning, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam bokeach ivrim? Oh God, I can open my eyes.
But that's
Malbisha
not a
Ramim, I
miracle.
can get dressed. I have clothes in the closets.
I'm
In other
thanking
words,
God there, but
now,
not for miracles.
1 second. And if that's not enough, you said Mizmor Toda. God, thank you, like a Korban Toda. So I believe that Judaism says miracle doesn't just mean unnatural, it also means natural.
Do we use
Now, you
miracle
are
in that?
correct, Bruce, that in halacha, there is a difference between an unnatural extraterritorial miracle and a miracle of what we would call routine. After all, the Gemara in Shabbos says that whoever says Hallel every day is a what's the word? Blasphemy? Blasphemer? Anyone English?
Yeah, blasphemer.
A
Sure.
blasphemer. Why is he a blasphemer for saying Hallel every day? Because not every day extraordinary miracles happen. The Gemara says you're right. You can say Hallel every day. You should take Sukkah de Zimra every day. So there is a difference between unnatural miracles and just thanking God for routine. But if you're already thanking God, says these points of view, well, thank God for both things. For things you know about, for things you don't know about, for the routine, the non-routine, for then and for now. Put it all in. Now, just in case you think I'm crazy, and that, all right, so we'll thank God for then, we'll thank God for now, does this really have a ramification? As you know, in all my shiurim, I believe everything I said is a drasha unless I can prove it practically from the halacha. If I can't, then it's a nice drasha. You can take it or you can throw it out. But if I can prove it from the halacha, at least you can't sleep at night if you disagree with me. You agree, you sleep fine. So I just brought 2 points of view. Do you say bisman hazeh, past only, or ubisman hazeh, past and present? Let's see. Let's see if I'm crazy and if there's a ramification for what I said. Is it just thanking God for then or thanking God also for now? Look at the next slide. Everybody in Judaism has their favorite Hanukkah pastime. I'll tell you what mine is. I don't like eating jelly donuts or chocolate donuts or donuts. I actually don't even like eating latkes. You know what I like to do? I like to sit around the table and I like to ask whoever's around the table the famous question of the Beit Yosef. This question of the Beit Yosef is a question that can fill days and days. The question of the Beit Yosef produced a book of 500 answers, just to let you know. And here's the question of the Beit Yosef. This is a typical question of a Jew. A Jew, even when he's enjoying himself, he has to complain. Correct? He's at a restaurant, he has to complain. It's too cold, it's too hot. Can you get the draft away from me? Can you put the draft back on? You're at a restaurant, they're serving you hand and foot, keep your mouth shut and enjoy. Nah, I gotta complain. You got on a plane. They're serving you a meal to your actual seat. You have to complain. The ice wasn't enough ice in the cup. There's too much ice in the cup. So the Jews do the same thing with regard to holidays. We have an 8-day holiday starting tomorrow night. Instead of saying, thank you, we complain. So the Beit Yosef, our Shulchan Aruch complains. Why do we need 8 days? After all, don't you know that we were taught in pre-1K that in that little pitcher of oil, there was enough oil for 1 day. So the first day wasn't a miracle. The unnatural, extraterritorial miracle started on the second day. Why do we celebrate 8 days of Hanukkah? We should have celebrated 7 days of Hanukkah. In the words of the Beis Yosef, this is the question of the Beit Yosef. There's 500 answers in a book on this question. The Beit Yosef himself, in the part of the screen that's brown, gives 3 answers. He says maybe there wasn't even enough in there for 1 day. Maybe the miracle was that the next morning it continued to light. And then the other answer saying, the first day also had extraterritorial, unnatural miracles with the oil. And you can give other answers. It's my respite on Hanukkah. I sit around and complain, why do we need 8 days? 7 days would have been enough. And everyone around the table gives an answer. I, this morning, would like to suggest another answer that I heard personally from Rabbi J.J. Schachter Shlita. Have you heard the name? Rabbi J.J. Schachter is a university professor today at Yeshiva University. He was the former rabbi of the Jewish Center in the west side of Manhattan, the head of the Rav Soloveitchik Institute, used to be in Boston, where I was privileged first to meet him. And he does amazing work throughout the year, and I am, Baruch Hashem, privileged to be close to him. And I heard the following answer from him that I'm so happy to quote in his name. He said, and I quote, "The first day was a miracle, there's no question, because the first day was a miracle too. You know what the miracle was? That the oil lit. That you take oil and you take a wick and you try to light it, and it worked. It worked. What? It's so obvious to you that you got up this morning, so obvious to you can walk around, so obvious to you that, hey, I'm going to wake up today, I'll wake up tomorrow, I'll wake up the next day. Every single day we say Modeh Ani. We don't say Modeh Ani. Thank you, God, for all the extraterritorial miracles. We thank God for the natural miracles. So indeed, in my humble opinion, this will explain the following halacha. So Rabbi J.J. Schachter said the first day was the miracle of nature, that nature continues to work. Don't take it as a given that you got up this morning and that you're alive. So I would like to prove, based on what he said, that this is true halacha. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Kol Shmonat Yemei Chanukah Omer Al Hanisim Bebirkat Hamazon Ubitfila Bebirkat Modim. What happens if you forget Al Hanisim? What happens if you forget Al Hanisim in benching or in the davening? What do you do?
Don't repeat it.
Why don't you repeat it, Harold?
Well, you say modim. It's also on the Nissim.
Harold has a great answer. I'm going to put it in one sentence. You already said thank you. All you did is not say thank you very much. Did I sum up your words correctly?
Yes.
In other words, says Rav Soloveitchik, quoted by Rav Shurkin in his book Hararei Kedem over here, quoted by Rav Shechter in his book Eretz Hatzvi. You're not saying here, oh, it's Hanukkah today. What you're doing is thanking God for the miracles of Hanukkah. But if you've already thanked God, Modim Anachnu Lach, and in those words, Bruce, listen carefully, this is your question, the Al Nisecha Shebechol Yom Imanu, and on the miracles that are with us every single day, you already said thank you. But you didn't say thank you very much. You didn't say Vala Nisim, Vala Purkan, Bimei, Matau Ben Yochanan, but thank you, you said. So thank you, you said. This is good enough. As a matter of fact, I wrote this in my book, Daven Your Age, that came out in 2013, and it was based on shiurim we gave in this kollel. And I happen to admit that in one of the, the reviews on my book, this is the vort they picked out. They said, if you already said thank you, you don't have to say thank you very much. You should, but you don't have to. I would like to suggest today, that's exactly what we've been talking about. If it's about extraterritorial miracles, hard for me to understand. Why don't you have to repeat Al Hanisim? All you did is say thank you for the natural. You didn't say thank you for the unnatural. But if you want to say no, Hanukkah is about then and now. So if you already said Val Nisecha Shebechol Yom Imanu, and on your miracles that are with us all the time, you mean then and now. So your modim is part and parcel of the modim of then. Your modim of today is part of the modim of then. And therefore, if you already said thank you, and you're thanking God for being alive and well, and you want to add Chanukah of then, that's great. So you add to the now, the then. But if you say, no, Chanukah is historic, it's hard for me to understand, well, how does one be subsumed into the other? So I would like to suggest this proves my point. Namely, Chanukah is not just about then, it's also about now. And therefore, both in the benching and in the davening, we have it within the bracha of thanking God for today, for now, and not just for then. Unlike Ya'aleh V'Yavo. Unlike Ya'aleh V'Yavo. And therefore, Ya'aleh V'Yavo is totally different. And if you forget it, you have to repeat it, except for Rosh Chodesh night. But Modim is then and now. So once you say then, you say now, and it gets subsumed one into the other. The second ramification that I want to suggest is the Seder night. It's another night of the year where we say thank you to God. What are we thanking God for on the Seder night? Then or now or both? Let's see. The Mishnah in Psachim says, "Chayav b'chol dor v'dor chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim." Anyone want to translate? No one made a Seder this year. This year, I think there were more Seders made than any other year because of Corona, unfortunately. We couldn't be with family. So therefore, many, many more people made Seders. No? In all generations, one should what?
In every generation, the person is chayiv is obligated to see as he himself left Mitzrayim.
In all generations, one is obligated to see himself as if he left Mitzrayim, which means we have to close our eyes and imagine that we left Mitzrayim. I have to say that's the most difficult mitzvah I've ever seen in my life. I can eat matzah, I can eat maror. I'll be a little sick. No, I'll get over it. It's easy to light Chanukah candles. To actually feel like I left Mitzrayim, that's hard. I was never there. So the Rambam says, this is impossible. You don't do that. The Rambam in his halachos says, "B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam leharot et atzmo." What does that mean? The Seder night is about past. Past. So you were never there. So what do? You put on a show to remember the past. You put on a play. You drink 4 cups of wine. You put on a show. You eat the matzah that they ate then. You put on a show, but you were never there. But if the Mishnah in Psachim is correct, that's the nusach of the Haggadah that got into all Haggadahs. It basically means in every generation you have to think of yourself in the sense of what miracles did God do for you this year. So you mentioned Mitzrayim, and you edge towards the year 2020, and you mention all the miracles on the way. So thus at the Seder night, we sing Dayenu. We start way back when, and we make our way to now. Thus on the Seder night, how do we end Magid? We don't say, "Blessed be you, God, King of the universe, who has redeemed our forefathers from Egypt. Amen. Let's eat." What do we say? Asher ge'alanu v'ga'alet avotenu mimitzrayim. You have redeemed us and them, then and now. So as we could see, even on the Seder night, it's about then and now. So what we talked about today was a very simple issue. Avav, do we say bayamim hahem bizman hazeh or bayamim hahem u bizman hazeh? And I wanted to suggest this morning that it's a fundamental question in Judaism. Do we only thank God for then and also for now? And I proved it from, if you forget to say Al HaNisim, and I proved it from the Seder night. But I'd like to say today that I believe that this is a fundamental question. And this is the debate that Bruce and I had in this year. Is a miracle just a supernatural? Or is the miracle even natural? Is the miracle even the fact that we're alive and well to celebrate Hanukkah tomorrow night so far? Or is the miracle only of those extraterritorial, unnatural occurrences? Gentlemen, I wish everyone a very, very happy Hanukkah. I hope that everyone stays healthy and well. And most importantly, you'll be able to not just thank God for then, but be able to thank God for many miracles that are happening around us right now. We do it every morning. We say the words Va'al Nisecha Shebechol Yom Imanu 3 times a day at least. And I believe that indeed we are so lucky to be here right now and just to be able to talk and to learn together. A given 8 months ago was no longer a given in my mind anymore. So much has changed, and here we are still learning Torah together. So I believe this year at least, whether you say Ubizman hazeh or Bizman hazeh, it's extremely important and critical and in place in this Hanukkah to thank God not just for then, but also for now. We are getting to Hanukkah, and already they're speaking about a vaccination for this terrible disease. We just started 8 months ago. There's already a vaccination. Whether it's good, not good, I'm not a doctor. But the very fact that we're talking about it is no less, in my opinion, than a miracle. Wishing everyone a good day.
This is Rabbi
Stay
Yeshua.
healthy.
Rabbi
Good
Yeshua,
day and a prayer for
Just-
Chanukah.
just to clarify, I didn't refer to supernatural. I just said highly improbable. So if you decide to jump out of the airplane and forget your parachute and you land perfectly safely, that's highly unlikely. I wouldn't call it supernatural, just highly unlikely. And
Right.
one doesn't need a supernatural miracle, just something highly unlikely.
Right.
Other than that, say thanks. Why not? We should thank for everything, even jumping out with the parachute.
Right. I
If
hear.
someone said the bracha with the extra vav, if someone says the bracha with the extra vav, is it wrong?
No, it's not wrong. We saw this in Nusach in the Rambam that says it. Why would it be wrong?
But it's beautiful. I mean, in that sense, adding it.
I think it's absolutely not. Why would you say it's wrong? It's actually, it's one of the two options of how to say the bracha.
Thank you.
Anyway, wishing everyone a very happy and healthy Hanukkah. Maybe this year we should say healthy and happy because in that order of precedence. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we should all get vaccinated and go back to a new normal sooner than later.
Thank you, Rabbi Grant.